Hi everyone! Today I want to share with you my 5 favorite quotes from Marie Kondo's book, Spark Joy. Now, I had read her first book, The Life-Changing Magic of Tidying Up, when I was still living in Malaysia. And I went through the whole process within 2 days to go through my entire house following her process to a T. So by the time her second book came out, I was already done with that process. However, I'm still a really big fan, so I wanted to read it and I bought it anyways. I found the second book overall went into a lot more detail about the fine print of the process. Since I didn't really have any more things to discard, I especially focused on the sections in the book about placing things in your home, putting things away, how to arrange the stuff that you want to keep. And I read this book as soon as I arrived in Japan, so I was in the process of setting up my first apartment here, so it was perfect timing. Okay, the first quote is, "If the storage units are filled with unnecessary items, it will be impossible to keep them organized, and this will inevitably lead to a relapse." This really spoke to me because when we moved into our first Japanese apartment, it was a lot smaller than the previous places we had been living. Even though I had the same amount of stuff, all of a sudden it felt crowded and cluttered, and I couldn't understand why. So I looked at the areas that were bothering me the most, and I realized, yeah, there's just too much stuff in these places. This drawer has too many things in it. This cabinet is overfilled. If you've arranged everything to maximize the space and you find it's almost like a puzzle to get something out or put something away, that's going to be really tiring to keep up with in the long run. You want to try to make tidying as effortless as you can. For me, that meant re-examining each drawer that was bothering me, looking at all the contents and saying, which of these items do I use the most? Which could I live without? Which could be moved somewhere else in my house? Marie Kondo says it's important to keep items of a similar nature together, so I also kept that in mind as I was rearranging things. I also tried to make sure each drawer had some negative space. Negative space is very calming to me because I know that there's still room left in the drawer if I really have to put something, and it doesn't feel cluttered at all. The second quote is, "The best way to identify what does or doesn't bring joy is to compare." I really like this quote because sometimes people have difficulty with understanding what is joy. There's so many different ways you can define joy. And when Marie Kondo first wrote this book, obviously it was in Japanese, not English. So she didn't use the English word, and I don't think we need to read into it too much. So when she says the best way to find out what sparks joy is to compare, that really clicked with me. She said when her clients are having trouble, she'll start with clothing, she'll start with the tops, there might be a huge pile of tops, and she'll say, okay, pick your 3 favorites. So when they're finally able to choose the 3 things that they most love, then she lets them hold them, see how they feel about them, really analyze what it is that they like about them, and then the process becomes much easier. So I love that idea. I think that's a really clear explanation for those people who have been struggling with it. When I speak to Japanese people about this idea, they don't use the word joy. I've heard the word sparkles and other things, so I think it's safe to say you can define it however you want to. Okay, time for the third quote. How can you make your home more spacious? The answer is simple. Get rid of furniture. But by furniture, I don't mean your bed or your sofa, I mean furniture that is used to store things. I really like this quote because at the time when I was moving into that Japanese apartment, it didn't have a lot of furniture. I started to think, do I need to buy some? Do I need a bookshelf? Do I need a desk? Do I need a dresser? All these things that I've had most of my life that most people have. But I found the answer is no, I don't need them. Now if I wanted them, that would be fine. But if I don't have things to put in them, then I'm just going to end up with a more spacious place. And a more spacious place is going to feel better for me. So I just enjoyed reading that. It was kind of some confirmation that we don't have to have all this furniture to store things, especially if we don't have things anymore. Okay, the next quote is, "The more textual information you have in your environment, the more your home becomes filled with noise." I love this one because it's not something I had really thought about before reading her book. She even specifically mentioned book titles and said the energy from book titles is very powerful. All the words that you surround yourself, all the textual influences, they do have an effect on you. Now personally, I don't have a lot of books, so I didn't have to think about that. But I did do whatever I could to remove any labels that were unneeded. So that included a lot of marketing and product stickers that come on things that I have purchased. Sometimes it means transferring products into other glass containers that I have, and most of those containers I have recycled from old purchases. But it took on a whole new meaning when I moved into this Japanese apartment because there were labels everywhere. It was a new build and the previous tenant hadn't removed any of them. And these are labels, how to operate everything, explaining instructions. They were huge. It actually felt kind of weird taking them off because we've been kind of trained not to. I'm sure you've all seen those tags on mattresses that say do not remove. But actually, I think it's important to remember that these are our things and we can remove the labels and we can remove the tags from inside of our clothing. So it was so interesting because once I removed all of these labels, the house felt like a different place. Suddenly, it just felt a lot more airy and a lot more calming. And even though the text was in Japanese, it was still having that effect on me. Okay, the final quote is, I can assure you that after you have brought your storage in line with the Joy specifications, you will experience benefits that you could never have achieved by merely getting rid of things. I really love this quote because the Marie Kondo method and minimalism are not the same thing. There are some ways that they're similar, but there's many ways that they're very different. This is a topic that I do plan to cover in another video soon, but this is just a good example I can bring up now. The KonMari method really places importance on putting things away. Discarding is just the first step of the process. I've seen people who have much less stuff than I do, but because they haven't really put a lot of thought into where they're keeping it or how they're keeping it, that it still feels cluttered. Again, if you don't have that much stuff, but maybe all of it's out on display, it's going to feel like you have way more than you do. So I just love the attention that Marie Kondo gives to that part of the tidying experience. And if you want to know more about that, then you'll definitely have to check out the book for yourself. So that's it for today. Don't forget to leave a comment down below. I'd love to hear what was your favorite quote, what spoke to you from that book. I love the community that we have in the comment section, so please do share, and I look forward to hearing from you then. Bye!